seeing heat waves happen every year. It's becoming hotter and hotter.
The house today is cool. Outside temperatures may be 40, 45. Inside the home is always 25. We are sleeping with blankets at night.
As India burns with heat waves, we met 3 innovators who are solving the problem of climate change and environmental degradation. What could be the solution of this huge problem? Stick around till the end to find out.
I think in the future we'll all live in bubbles.
I was reading some reports about financing. Now, approximately 70% of your VC funds are talking about climate.
Let us set up community greenhouses.
Clearly, the next set of opportunities are going to be in areas like, sustainability, climate change.
If everyone does that, the earth will become greener like that.
Hi, welcome to the Better India Show. In this podcast, we speak with amazing people who are solving some of India's largest problems. And in particular, in today's episode, we're really focusing on climate change, pollution, environmental degradation. That's pretty much everywhere around us that we're seeing. We wanted to really focus not just talking about the scale of the problem. We all know how terrible the air quality indexes are in all our cities in the country. But we wanted to today speak about specific solutions that you can start implementing, irrespective of your background. You're a student, you're a young professional, or you're an innovator. What are the specific steps that you could take to address this massive air pollution problem and the environmental degradation that's happening all around us? So in this, with this context, we have 3 amazing people here. We have the wonderful couple, Nino and Peter, who are going to share some incredible insights on how they've made this beautiful oasis of a home here in Delhi. And we have Sukmit, who is solving for the entire air pollution problem that plagues the NCR region, and we're going to get into solutions that he has implemented. And before I get started on this, I wanted to lay down one very interesting fact. We are shooting this in Delhi. The AQI outside is almost 400, but in this house, we've got a pollution monitor and the AQI is at 10. 5. The 6. I mean, kudos to you guys for doing this. So on that note, let's get started. It would be wonderful if, I'll start with Nino and Peter. If you guys can introduce yourself and tell us what you've done here.
I am Peter Satwan Singh, and I studied mathematics in Delhi University, and then decided we need to do more. So after we got married, we went back to our village, took up sustainable farming. And then we moved to Delhi, to this house with our children who had to go to school. Now, Delhi air is polluted. And my wife, she got leukemia. And leukemia is because of benzene in the air. It has been now proven that automobile exhaust causes benzene causes leukemia. But research papers have been published on that. So we had this home in Delhi, and she was getting lung infections all the time, and we were told, get out of Delhi. So our son had a place in Goa, we went there, but then that was not a solution. Also, because of her health, she got leukemia, she needed to eat organic. We thought we have to grow our own food and be sustainable. So that is how we thought of this concept, learned about aquaponics. Now see, in conventional farming, you use fertilizer, you use pesticides and other things, large amounts of water. So we have this home in Delhi in 800 yards. What we've done is we've made a greenhouse all around the house, and the air is filtered through the greenhouse. So as you said, when outside levels are 800, inside a home, PM 2.5 is 5 and PM 10 is 10, 24/7 all day around. And the house today is cool. Outside temperatures may be 40, 45. Inside the home is always 25. We are sleeping with blankets at night.
So I feel we don't need to go out anywhere. We have this haven where the air is clean, where we grow our own food, we do our own work, and we eat healthy, and we are energized and we are happy and healthy.
Yeah, in fact, I just want to add to, Peter, what you were saying was that you have 10,000 plants in this house. 10,000 plants.
This greenhouse around the house and on the rooftop. We took all available space. We have 10,000 plants of vegetables and fruits growing. We have 3 fish tanks growing fish. We are doing aquaponics. So the water from the fish gives nutrition to the plants. The plants clean the water, it goes back to the fish. So it's a closed loop cycle, totally organic. We use no chemical, no fertilizer. We just feed the fish and the fish waste feeds the plants.
And further, we make compost from our kitchen and garden waste. It's vermicompost. We add worms to it. We collect all the neighborhood sweepings and the leaves and we compost those and get leaf mold. So we add further nutrition to our plants because we use the vermicompost and the fish waste. So together we get double nutrition and we get better yields.
Got it. While we've established the context that you build this extremely sustainable home, you're not sending any waste outside except for recyclable, plastic. But if you can, I want to break down this whole journey of yours so that the viewers who are watching should be able to see how do they get started on this journey, right? So if you can just help understand what was the starting point in terms of how, because you have so many things going on. You're growing your own vegetables. You've got this clean air thing going. You're recycling all the waste that's being generated. If you can give a starting point on how someone should think about implementing even a fraction of what you've done, how should they approach it? If you could just highlight some of the key steps in this.
See, aquaponics is very simple. You have fish in a tank. The tank can be any size. 1,000 liters of water grows 20 kilos of fish. So you put fish in a tank, then you cycle the water out from that tank to a biofilter. So like even we have a balcony model, 3 feet by 9 feet in the home in Goa, which grows 500 plants, which has enough vegetables for the home. So from the fish waste, the ammonia of the fish waste goes into a biofilter where there's natural bacteria which breaks the ammonia to nitrates and nitrites. This then is circulated to plants grown hydroponically without soil. Aquaponics is aquaculture and hydroponic combined. So the plants are growing without soil, and as she said, we've combined it with permaculture. So the pots are filled with vermicompost, plants in that, the water runs under them, and the plants clean the water, it goes back to the fish. So it's a simple system. You can set it up. We have an aquarium unit in Goa, which we set up for schools, which has just a small aquarium, and it has 250 plants. It's 2 feet wide, 6 feet long, 6 feet high.
But to go back to your question, so you can have this model of an aquarium and the plants, and if you are living in an apartment, which a lot of people in the city are, then all you need to do is enclose the outside in a greenhouse, which is a polythene sheeting, and make a filter where the air comes in only through that filter and blows it into the house. So you create your own environment. Well, that's what we need to do. I think in the future we'll all live in bubbles. We have no choice to keep out the pollution and to keep ourselves and our families healthy.
And I want to come into a little more of the details of this stuff. But before I want to go that, Sukmit, I'd love for you to talk about what you do, and specifically from the context that Nino mentioned that in the future we're going to live in bubbles. And I think what Sukmit is trying to do is how do we make it more egalitarian in terms of access to clean air. So Sukmit, it would be wonderful for the audience to know what you do, the idea that you started with. Please share that journey.
Yeah. So thanks, Dimant, for inviting me. I lived in Chandigarh throughout my childhood. Then, as most of the kids do, they go out for education. Then I joined, after my engineering, joined TCS, like a software developer. Spent a couple of years in US, then went to ISB for my MBA, but then went back to technology, spent some time in Dubai. So we have moved all around in India and abroad. In 2010, I was in US. My both brother and sisters, they are also in US. My parents were saying that at least one of you should come back. So I said that, okay, so I wanted to come back to Chandigarh. So I came back in 2011 and joined Indian School of Business, first at Hyderabad and then in Mohali campus. So my area was related to agriculture, manufacturing, supply chain. So we used to do consulting kind of research to action projects where we would advise either companies or government on issues related to these sectors. And every time this agriculture supply chain issue came in, this whole stubble burning issue started popping up. And I had two small young kids at that point of time. And I could see that, okay, those months, especially winter months, the air is so bad. Why can't we do anything about that? In 2016, I started a not-for-profit. It's called Energy Harvest Charitable Trust. And I partnered with my now co-founder, Dr. Robert Berry. He was heading European Bioenergy Research Institute. The idea of that NGO was that can we work with farmers to stop this whole stubble burning or biomass burning problem, especially in northern India. And a couple of years we ran this NGO, did a lot of trainings with farmers. And
so how was the NGO trying to stop the stubble farming? What was your pitch to the farmers?
So our idea was that in UK, where Dr. Robert Berry came from, the European Bioenergy Research Institute, they had technologies of using this agriculture waste for energy purposes. So it starts from pellets, briquettes to higher level fuel, which are replacement of diesel, which are replacement of your LNG, but everything coming from agriculture waste. So there are technologies like pyrolysis or torrefaction where you can make fuel out of this agriculture waste, which is very similar to your fossil fuel. So at that point of time, we thought that, okay, let's talk about these technologies with farmers and see if there's an adoption to these technologies. But we found out that these are bigger projects. We can't expect farmers to take these up. So this has to come into an entrepreneurship model where entrepreneurs take up these technologies. And in 2018, I stepped out from my job, left my job at ISP and started this company called A2P Energy, stands for Agree to Power. So I thought that let's try it out in terms of, can we do something with agriculture waste? It had multiple facets to it. One was, can we give extra livelihood option for farmers, income generation? That can we buy this agriculture waste? Second, on the other hand, because I was coming from industry, I had some connections with the industrial sector, which were using fossil fuel. And at that point of time, there were these talks about carbon neutrality, though it was still early days, but carbon neutrality, CO2, fossil fuel reduction. So we thought that, why don't we connect these two things? So on one hand, the NGO work still goes on and we do a lot of interesting technology related stuff in that. But this private limited A2P Energy, we set up to process basically agriculture waste as a model unit, which can help replace fossil fuel in the industry. The idea is simple. If we think about, from a child's point of view, how does coal, gas, and oil form in nature? And so what happened thousands or millions of years ago? There were trees which got buried inside the earth, and there was high temperature, high pressure without oxygen. So this, it releases three things. One is gas, one is oil, and one is the leftover, which is the coal. Can we replace or can we mimic these things in an industrial setup to produce basically replacement of coal and oil? And so what we are doing, from a carbon point of view, what is carbon neutrality or what is CO2 emissions, why fossil fuels are bad? It is basically the carbon which is buried in the soil or in the earth. We are taking it out and we are putting it in the atmosphere. Now, so you hear about carbon capture technologies and all, but it's very costly. It's carbon intensive again to capture carbon, put it back into the field. But when we use plants, it's a plant's leftover, which is they have sucked in CO2 from the atmosphere. Can we use that to make fuel instead of taking out carbon from coal or oil or gas and use it in the industrial setup? I think that is from a technology point of view. Now, there are different facets to it, talking about farmers, talking about the whole economy of CO2. But essentially, I think the idea started, it was, one was the personal reason of seeing my kids growing up in North India and having to deal with this gaseous air. Because I was in this educational institute, we used to read about these reports that how carbon particles now can actually be found out in the lungs of children who are staying here. I think that's the maximum you can think about your kids having carbon particles in their lungs because of this pollution. I think these are the things when you hear about, you think that, okay, why can't we do something about that? And then there is, funny research also, which you hear about impact of air pollution. There is a MIT research which happened a few years back, which said that people who live in high pollution areas, they have a disposition bias. That's basically, if you are a trader, you will sell your stocks which are giving you good returns, and you will invest on your stocks which are not giving you good returns. And similar things, that they did a study on baseball coaches and those who live in, because in US also there is pollution. Those who live in states where there's high pollution, there's a bias to make more errors, right? So it impacts your cognitive skills.
Okay.
So I think these are some of these things which if you hear or read about these, you actually get shocked about it. But India, we don't talk about these things as a core issue or, politics issue or, issue which has to be solved.
Yeah.
I think, that's my take. Yeah.
So to just a little bit kind of simplify it, effectively what you decided to do is, because there's so much of stubble burning happening, which is leading to the pollution, this technology that you talking about is where you said, look, we'll buy out the stubble, don't let it burn there, but we'll use technology so that we can convert that waste into fuel for industries. So, when you talk about this whole pollution thing, very, very rightly said, right? Like I was reading a report that the lungs of people who live in high AQI cities are equivalent to people who are smoking 10 cigarettes a day. And clearly we're reducing lifespan by 10, 15 years in that context. So with regards to the NCR region, this is where we are right now, we're talking about this, and both the solutions that you guys have implemented are here. How much of it is attributed to this agricultural stubble burning thing, and how much of it is like vehicular, or is it industrial? The reason I want to kind of know this a little better is because when you talk to the average citizen out there, most of them just resign to it, saying that this is a structural thing, we can't really do anything. But clearly, I mean, three of you are kind of working to kind of solve this, and I want to kind of give people the idea that, look, you don't have to live with a reality like this. There's so much more that you can do. So I would just love to know, what do you think are the main causes that has led to where our cities are today? Anyone?
Well, the major cause is benzene from automobile exhausts. There has been a study done that on major roads that have large amounts of traffic, within 100 meters of the road on both sides is the highest incidence of leukemia.
Not just leukemia, it's all
No,
cancer.
mainly leukemia, because see, it goes into your lungs and it messes up your immune system. So this was a study done and published many years ago. And this was one of the main reasons why we ran away from Delhi. And we wanted to go, and our son bought a place in Goa, but then we've come back to Delhi and we've created this environment around us. But there are two things. See, one is automobiles. Then the carbon footprint of transportation of food.
Transportation of food.
See, food is grown in the villages. It comes to city in trucks. And those trucks, the fumes coming out, you go behind a truck and it's all blowing there. That is adding to it. So, in a sense, what you have to do is grow food where you live. The farm should only be growing things like wheat and rice and these kind of crops. You don't need to grow vegetables in farms. As we are showing here, we have 10,000 plants of vegetables. Grow them in your balcony, grow them in your home. This concept that, stubble burning is adding to it is just, I think, is miscalculated. Stubble burning is when it's just for 1 month in the year. But what about the rest of the, now it's summer. Why is the air outside polluted? I just showed you our pollution levels is 5 and 10. Delhi outside is still 200, 300. Where is the stubble burning?
I think I'll probably step out at a more broader level, talk about India. These are the questions which we also had right from the day one when we started our work. that is the stubble burning culprit or are the farmers culprit? And there are different studies. You can say it's some says it's 40% problem because of stubble, some says 20%. And as they were saying, it's very specific to these months. In our NGO, as I said, we do a lot of technology stuff which is supported by projects from different organizations. We did one project which was supported by NVIDIA, which is this AI processor company. We launched a platform called cropburning.in. It's an open source platform where we mapped single point burning incidents on crops across India. And then we were lucky enough also to then get support from Google. We were selected under Google's AI for Social Good program, where they gave few resources from Google and a professor attached to that for this project. Now, what we wanted to showcase was that it is not just a North India problem. It's not just Punjab, Haryana problem. It is an all India level problem. What do we do about that? It's a policy level change or energy level issues which we can solve from these stubble. The idea was that, first of all, put the data around that. So, why we hear only North India stubble burning? It is because of only the NCR issues which comes into play. But just to give you some numbers, in Punjab, Haryana, it's about 35 million tons of straw which is generated every year. Some say 40% is burned, 30% is burned. Now, but when you talk about 500 million tons is generated every year in India. And if you go to cropburning.in, you can see the fire incidents, live fire incidents, which are mapped by satellite. And it takes in data every day from satellite live. Now we've automated everything. Even it will have night fires, day fires, everything detailed up to a single farm level.
Anybody can go and see.
Anybody can go and see that.
What's the website?
It's called cropburning.in.
Okay.
See, that was to just give out that the problem is not so. If one state farmers are burning it, or if one region farmers are burning, then we say okay, solve this. But the problem is of whole of India. It is not being highlighted because nobody is getting impacted as NCR because of these fires. Right? So that was a data point of it. Right? So just highlight this through as an open source platform which can be utilized. Now, what do you do with that? Right? So all India level, so when we started our work, we started a manufacturing unit in Punjab, but we got queries up to Bangalore or West Bengal that, is there a solution to this fossil burning problem or crop burning problem? We launched a platform called Clean Energy Trade, where farmers or small manufacturers of biofuels can come on that platform, and we give them a market access. Right? So companies which are now, most of the companies have net zero targets. It is also flowing from either COP goals.
Sorry, so what does this platform do? It enables farmers to sell their agri-waste?
Sell the agri-waste, either farmers or if let's say there are small manufacturers who are making fuel out of agriculture residue. Okay. It's called cleanenergytrade.com. Right. So the idea was that because we work in a very limited geography in North, right? So that is where our processing unit is. But if we work with a company in Punjab, they have factories across India, we get that, okay, can we supply cleaner fuel to these factory locations? And then we were surprised to know that there are actually small entrepreneurs or farmers who want to give their stubble, they don't want to burn it. So if we work across the geography, I've been to Gujarat extensively where cotton stalks are burned, in Uttar Pradesh, sugarcane leaves are burnt, and going up to southern, and there are different types of agriculture waste. Like now, what we have done with one of the MNCs, we are taking coffee waste in Bangalore, getting it processed in a fuel, and then supplying to a factory in Karnataka itself to replace coal. Right? So idea was to use the local resources and able to replace fossil. So that's the whole marketplace model we've launched.
Very interesting. So the idea that whatever is produced locally and that waste can be then consumed to create fuel and used it for the local sort of companies or local fuel needs.
Yeah.
Is interesting. Like, what's the big, like, why? I'm always curious, right? What's the biggest challenge in this being adopted at massive scale?
See, one is in India, this problem of crop burning is not new in the world, right? So it's been there for California or different parts of world. And they have resolved it. One biggest advantage was that their fields are one person will own 500 acres or 1,000 acres. Here we have average size holding of 5-7 acres. And now every 5-7 acres, there could be different crops, which will have different cutting season, and then in different months, you will have different biomass availability. Now, when we talk about, let's suppose as a consumer, I want agriculture-based fuel or raw agriculture waste, But now they have to deal with thousands of farmers. Now that becomes a challenge for a company to procure biofuels or agriculture waste in large quantities, which was there like in US when the rule was adopted of not burning. So then you can hold, if there's 1,000 acres not being burned, that's a single person you can go. Here it becomes a challenge. You have to deal with thousands of farmers. If you have to consolidate, let's suppose from 5,000 acres, you will have to go to thousands of farmers to do that. And then there's so much diversity. I think that becomes a challenge in India. And even for bigger projects, we have now projects which can produce like pellets or briquettes or now CNG, bio-CNG, which is replacement of your CNG. I think biggest challenges which companies are facing is that how do you work with so many farmers, or how do you consolidate the supply from these farmers and then source it to a single factory.
Understood. Got it. And, like I want to come to Peter and Nino actually. If someone was watching this, like most Indians living, let's say a family of 4, living in a flat, and if they want to move towards consuming their own food, nothing fancy, but at least daily vegetables, if they want to kind of just consume. Family of 4, a small 2 BHK, 3 BHK with a balcony maybe at best. What would be your aim? Is it possible for them to grow their own food and eat every day? Yes. And what's the bare minimum setup they need to do? And how much would it cost a family like this to do this on a monthly basis?
See, a balcony model, a 3 foot by 9 foot model, can grow 500 plants. So all you need to do is you need to enclose the balcony from outside with the poly sheeting. It's cheap, you get it from Amazon. You get vertical pipes. You see, aquaponics uses vertical space. Conventional farming uses only horizontal space. So when we are talking of a 3 foot, 9 foot balcony, we're also talking of a 10 foot height, where we put vertical aeroponic towers. One 4 foot aeroponic tower of a 4-inch pipe has 15 plants in it. So if I put up 10 pipes like that at a distance of 1 feet, I've got 150 plants.
In one balcony of a 3 feet by 9 feet.
3 feet or 9 feet, I can grow 500 plants.
Wow.
So I can grow my greens, I can grow lettuce, I can grow spinach, I can grow tomatoes, I can grow everything.
You can grow. See, the most important thing, I feel that greens like palak. Now, spinach, which every Indian likes to eat, is grown around the cities in the sewage that goes from the city. There are cases of tapeworm for vegetarians from cabbage and spinach because of the food, that's improperly treated sewage. So it's frightening to even eat, and there are heavy metals also in that spinach. So these greens is most important that you can grow. They're quick growing, they're easy to grow, but the mindset is what's important, I find. No, if I may just say, no, because you have to want to grow your own healthy food. That's the important thing. So unless you have a passion for it, it doesn't work.
No, but also you're talking about the cost. Yeah. The cost of setting up a balcony would be maybe about 30,000 rupees.
That's a one-time cost.
It's a one-time capital cost.
Right.
The running cost is only feeding your fish. And if you don't want to eat fish, you can keep ornamental fish. You can set up an aquarium, a beautiful glass aquarium with ornamental fish in it, which you can sit and look at. It's a restful feeling. And the water from that would irrigate your whole balcony. And the water use is minimal. As I said, here for 10,000 plants, we're using 1,000 liters of water a day. Now, so you can use your own water there. For a balcony, how much? Maybe you'll need 20 liters of water or 50 liters of water a day. And the same water is recirculated.
From the fish tank.
Yeah, from the fish tank to the plants and back to the fish. And see, the idea is that you are using no chemical, no fertilizer, and you're composting your kitchen and garden waste. So instead of putting it into a dustbin and throwing it for the kudawala to take, you compost it.
You can put a small bin. You get very neat bins, which are sealed, so there's no smell. And you can, within a month, get your own compost. So your kitchen waste goes into making your food again. But Peter, what you also have to tell them is once you've enclosed the balcony in a plastic sheet, You have to create a filter.
So what happens is that once you say you have a
Yeah, because if you close it fully, then it starts becoming hot.
So what you do is you enclose a balcony, the outside of a balcony with a plastic sheet. One side you put a filter, which is like a cast or a cooler filter. You get made cooler panels. You can buy them. It costs you about 1,500 rupees. It's like a desert cooler. So you put it outside and you have a small pump running water onto it. Inside there's a fan. So you pull in the air from that comes through the balcony and goes through your house. Now see, 20% of all energy used in the city is air conditioning. And air conditioners are heating up homes. They are spewing, hot air out, and the chemicals they are using are harming the environment. We have no air conditioning in our home, right? So you can do this. You can do it in flats. You can do it in balconies. You can do it in basements, inside a home. All you need to do is, if there's no light, use an artificial grow light. They are very cheap. One light costs about 500 rupees. There are companies in Pune making it. And it gives you full spectrum sunlight. So for the plants. So you can set up the plants in trays, racks. You can put up these lights. And that's it. So, and there's nothing to do. Because in this, you're planting once. See, in traditional agriculture, you're planting, you're hoeing, you're redoing it. Here, there's nothing. You plant in a pot, you put it in the system, it's automatically watered. You pluck your harvest. No weeding required. You put in a new pot. You've got a nursery growing separately. Like I've shown you in our lettuce greenhouse, there's a nursery, there's a seedling stage. So at every stage, you're producing, and it's automatic. Senior citizens can do it. See, the most important thing is people who retire, sitting at home, they've got nothing to do. Now, this is no bending, sitting. You can grow it horizontally, vertically. You can walk around and doing it. If you're in a wheelchair, you can go there and you can handle your plants. And the pleasure of growing plants, plucking them and eating them, I think it surpasses any.
It's rewarding in itself.
I can hear the bliss. When you talk about that. That's an interesting point. That senior citizens, if they want to get into gardening, and most of them have this thing that I can't squat, I can't bend down and dig it. But what you're saying is that this whole aquaponic system can be built at a height that's comfortable for you. And how much effort does it take on a daily basis once you have set this up?
See, we have 10,000 plants of fruits and vegetables here. We have one couple handling it. Watering is automatic. Everything else is automatic. You're just planting and you're harvesting. You're doing nothing.
And you just have to check that the water is flowing.
So
your pumps are working.
You have to check once a day. So every morning or every evening you go, you check, is your water running? You can set up a camera if you're not there at home. And from outside you can see that is the water. And these things are automatic. The water will run by itself. It will fill by itself. And that's it. And you feed the fish. So even
because the fish waste generates the nutrition for the plants, and you add compost to it.
And even the fish waste, the food for the fish, we are now making ourselves. We used to previously buy it, but you never know what they're putting inside it. Like poultry feed has antibiotics, growth hormones. So we buy oil cake, we buy wheat bran and wheat and other things. We mix it together and we make a dough and we make our own feed.
So you make the fish food as well at home, and then you feed it, and then that waters the plants, and then you eat them, and that waste is then recirculated as compost.
And when you're eating the fish, all the fish bones and all go into compost. They're calcium. So you're not throwing anything away.
Wow.
The fish bones, in fact, are the most nutritious because they provide the calcium and the potassium for the plants, the mineral.
Like tomatoes need a huge amount of potassium. So the fish bones and other bones from meat or anything you eat, if they are crushed and put into the plants, and Nino makes these composts, you can talk about the compost mixes.
Yeah, no, I would love to know more on the compost.
So what we do is, the fruit sellers around, all the bananas that rot, we collect their bananas.
Okay.
We can only eat that many bananas. Now, bananas provide potassium. So vegetables that require a lot of inputs, like, say, tomatoes and cucumbers, because they're fruiting. So they need potassium and they need calcium. For calcium, we use eggshells. Again, all those chaps who are selling boiled eggs, we buy the eggshells crush them, and they're used chalk. Chalk again has high calcium. So we use all these organic solutions for providing nutrition for our plants. We use no chemicals as pest control, because what are traditionally they're using chemicals which are systemic chemicals, which are going into our bodies and causing cancers. We use neem oil, we use garlic and red chilies which are ground, and we spray on the plants to deter pests. So we use no harmful chemicals, because
Tea and coffee.
yes, coffee is a very, very good nutrition. So coffee grounds, collect them from your local coffee.
Which is anyway a waste.
Yes, it's wasted. So use that for your plants. That's very, very
Even at
nutritious.
home, like we have 3 bins in the kitchen. One has eggshells
One is eggshells and banana
and
peels.
banana peels. One has tea and coffee. And
The third is our food waste. So they all kept
third is our
separately.
food waste. So all these trees are put in those bins. And the food waste, of course, is emptied out every day into the compost. And the others fill in about 4 or 5 days, and then they're taken out, mixed up. And then Nino makes a ratio of all the...
We make what they call a compost tea. So the compost tea is the vermicompost in water and all these things added to it, sort of mashed up a bit. And then to make it really well, you have to aerate it. So we run a small aerator, because when you oxygenate it, it's much more nutritious for the plants. But even if you just stir it once or twice, then you can feed the plants, and they show you the result themselves. They produce much more fruit.
See, what people have to realize is, in your home, you're generating all this nutritious waste, which you're throwing away. You throw it away. Right? And they have kudawalas who pick it up. There are garbage dumps in cities. Waste management is becoming a major problem for cities.
In fact, all our street, all the sweepings of the leaves, we collect them and we make leaf mold. So we've made these large bins, which we've constructed. We put the leaf mold in. We use this waste biodecomposer.
What is leaf mold?
Leaf mold is dried leaves. Dried leaves, but traditionally dried leaves to become leaf mold take in our climate about 6 months to 1 year. So we speed it up. We put it into a closed container, add a waste. You get this biodecomposer liquid, and you keep it moist. So within 3 or 4 months, you get this wonderful light medium for growing plants from waste. Otherwise, it's burnt.
See, from our home, both here and in Goa, we generate about, I think, 10 bags of vermicompost a month. If you buy it, that's 10,000 rupees.
Well, it's liquid gold in my opinion.
So if you're buying fertilizer, 10 bags of vermicompost, it's 1,000 rupees a bag.
Wow.
So 10,000 rupees income we are creating out of waste, which then gives us food.
Which is actually the other part I really want to talk about, is the whole, one is of course the passion, right? Like each of you started this because you were passionate to solve this large challenge. But looks like there is also a lot of economic opportunity in this, because if someone's watching this as an entrepreneur, as an innovator, clearly the next set of opportunities are going to be in areas like, sustainability, climate change, and, Sukmit, what you're trying to do with energy and pollution. How big is the opportunity, Sukmit? I'd love to get your view, since you're so deep inside this.
See, what has happened in the last few years is, because of this whole 1.5 degree temperature rise, and if you see the stats, it's actually very, horrific to see those stats that where we are heading. Fortunately, in India, we have now come down to a level that we have targets for carbon neutrality. By 2030, half of our energy needs has to come from renewable sources. By 2070, we as a whole country need to be carbon neutral. So now what has happened?
Can you just explain a little bit more on what is carbon neutral? Like for people who don't get it,
So
what does that mean?
So carbon neutral is basically, I explained to you in very high level thing that, when you're using fossil, the carbon is inside buried.
Fossil fuel.
Fossil fuel. Right? So let's suppose
petrol
I am a typical food processing company. I make, chips, or I make anything related to food. I require steam in my process. Right? So where do you generate steam? You will burn some fuel. So traditionally it has been coal. Now, what has happened is that coal is, in India, we have very low grade coal, which means that it has high ash percentage and low heating value. What we are doing is majorly in our country, we get Indonesian coal, US coal, where a lot of these countries, the coal burning is almost banned now because of CO2 emissions. We as a developing nation, we say that, okay, our human development index is around 0.6 or something that. But we are comparing that to our energy needs, that if we have to become, so there is a target for India to become as a developed nation by 2047. We say that, okay, our human development index will go up to 0.9. Then we are saying that, okay, one of the things for human development index is how much per capita energy we are able to use, or how much is available to us. Now for that, we need huge amounts of energy because we are a developing nation. So it has three parameters, human development index. It's education, your health, and your income. Now, world over, income is substituted by per capita energy availability or usage. Now we are saying that if we have to develop, we have to provide more energy to our people, also as a developing nation. Now that is a context for human development index. I'm just telling you how everything is so related. So we want to become a developing nation, we need more energy because we need our human development index to come to close to our developing nations. Right? So that's where we want to give more energy for our citizens. Now, on the other hand, what happened in the developed world was they used fossils to come up to that level. Or still are being, some of that is still powered through fossil fuels. Now, because of this whole 1.5 degree issues or COP targets, we said, okay, as in India, we are also responsible. We have committed to that half of our energy usage should come from renewable sources by 2030, which is not very far away. Now it gives a huge opportunity for an entrepreneur to explore these sources. Renewable is wind, solar, your biomass or hydro. If we think about a typical entrepreneur, right? So it's we can do small solar, wind is a slightly higher league, but biomass gives you good opportunity even at village level, farm level, or a city level. You can do a lot of stuff from biomass to fuel sources, and then is hydro. That's again a government area. Now biomass gives a good opportunity to actually helping India become a carbon neutral through biomass sources. One is the policy initiatives around carbon neutrality, how India becomes more focused on renewable. And that's at India scale, where thermal power plants are also shifting or introducing 2%, 5% instead of coal, these biomass sources. But for an entrepreneur, this gives a huge opportunity to then work with the industries, which require huge amount of energy. Steam, it could be electricity. What can we do to provide them or help shift them from fossil to renewable sources? If we talk about opportunities for a typical entrepreneur, it could be systems to help you do that. It is how do you do carbon accounting for that? Now what has happened is most of the companies which are MNCs, which is offices or headquarters abroad, they have given their carbon neutrality targets, or they want to become carbon net zero. It means that they will not put any fossil into their processes, or even if they do, they will buy credits from another entity which is carbon negative. Like carbon negative is basically I am taking out carbon, putting it in the field, I become carbon negative. Right? So then I can generate carbon credits out of that, and then I can sell to a company. Now, and just to make things simpler, if I am, let's suppose, a food processing company, if I want to use energy, either I shift to a cleaner energy fuels, or I buy some credits from some entrepreneur who is capturing carbon and putting it into the soil. This gives I think at a typical village level, farm level, or a person who can invest, let's say about 50, 60 lakhs also, a good opportunity to explore some of these businesses. It starts at, let's suppose, pellet manufacturing or briquette manufacturing, which can replace coal, which can go up to, if you have more money, you can then set up a pyrolysis unit, which then can replace your diesel, or a bio-CNG unit. We ourselves are putting in 2 compressed biogas units, which is basically your replacement of this fossil CNG. Now there's a mandate from government that all the LNG which is being imported, one is we have to reduce the import, second is use the biomass which is available for producing CBG, which is compressed biogas, but from green sources. So depending upon, I think, your investment and your interest, there's an opportunity in the green space across the domain. And this is, just talking about production of energy. From a consulting point of view, even companies are learning about it. So if you want to explore consulting as your source, there's huge scope in ESG consulting, because every year now companies are putting their ESG targets, how much carbon they are consuming, how much they are offsetting, scope 1, 2, 3. It goes up to even your vendors. If you're buying something in your process, how much your vendor is carbon intensive, right? So you think about manufacturing of a car. How many vendors do you have? How many sub-vendors do you have? Now, in my report, as a car manufacturer, I need to tell that how much carbon intensive my whole supply chain is, right? So it becomes a huge consulting kind of a issue also. And everything now has to be driven through technology, right? So software becomes a huge opportunity again. So all of this, I think, climate space, ESG gives you different parts of opportunities and it's not just India, it's across the globe. And so companies are learning about ESG, carbon neutrality, how we can shift to these things. I think from an entrepreneurship perspective, it is a very interesting area. Everybody is learning about that.
Right.
So I think even from a college point of view, I think if you're just passing out, it's a great area to explore.
Got it. So just correct me if I'm wrong on this. Is that basically the whole objective is that everyone needs to become carbon neutral, because we want to not produce more carbon than what we consume.
Yep.
So whatever we're consuming, we want to kind of make sure that it's within limits and we are not increasing the carbon dioxide levels and in that opportunity is where there are many different angles. One of them you mentioned is production of energy, which is not carbon intensive, like the biogas thing.
Correct.
So so that's one part. The second part is, like you said, consulting in this sector.
Yeah.
And then anything, right? It could be like even things like if you have a financial skill set.
Correct.
So accounting comes into picture where you can help companies figure out what their entire trail of carbon production is and all of that stuff. But if I were to kind of break this down and make it simpler for someone just watching this, with the intent that, okay, what is a tangible thing that I can start with? And I heard you say this whole biomass thing. If I want to set up a basic unit, what does it take and what does it cost? And how can I get up and running?
So a typical factory setup, just the machinery part of it can start from anywhere between 30 lakhs, which can go up to, a crore. What you can do
That's the capital
cost of a machine. What I can do is just collect the agriculture waste, produce that in the most simpler form is a briquette. Briquette is basically a cylindrical kind of it's a cylinder type of a thing which has 90 mm diameter, which can burn in the boilers, which is currently running coal. Right? That's the most simplest form of clean energy or clean setup you can do as an entrepreneur. And then there is no limit to it, gas, ethanol.
Right.
So different areas you can explore.
And once let's say I've done this capital allocation of setting up a unit, what are the kind of returns and where are the opportunities to what's the kind of income I can expect?
See, I'll give you, this is a very regional solution. In fact, yesterday, somebody from Hyderabad, a young person who's just graduating, he says that I want to set up a biomass related energy unit. I said, that's fine, because it's a very local. So I told him, forget about the money. First, do your homework that what all biomasses are available in your region. And that's the first step to it. He says that I have paddy straw, I have groundnut shell, I have sawdust, which is available. I said, that's very good. So you see that how much quantity every month you can source. That's the first step.
Okay.
As an entrepreneur, you want to know. Second is, then I told him that, also see the market part of it. Right? So the strongest buyer is, as on today, is the thermal power plants, because there's a mandate for 2%, 5% replacement. And when you're talking about 2%, 3% replacement, it could be thousands of tons just in one day. So I told him just search.
So the thermal power plants are willing to buy biomass to replace the coal that they're using as input.
There's a mandate of Government of India that to start with 2%,
right,
in another couple of years 5%, and going up to 10%.
Okay.
Similar to ethanol blending in our vehicular fuels. So that's a mandate. So some power plants have started it, like NTPC is buying, and few other private thermal power plants are buying, but that's the strongest buyers. Having said that, there are other companies which has told you if there's an MNC, it is definitely going to shift towards cleaner fuels. Told him just, once we have done the research on your sourcing part of these biomasses, see the market part of it. Thermal power plants and industries which require steam in the process or cleaner electricity in the process, they will surely buy that. So, you have to just connect these dots. You have to set up, so buying machinery is if you have cash flow, you can buy machinery. But having, done this, when we started, there was no market, there was no mandates, right? So we started working with some of the MNCs that, okay, yeah, let's try this fuel, try to replace coal. And there are challenges. It is not a very rosy picture also, that you will find challenges in terms of sourcing, in terms of, once you start sourcing, farmers say that, okay, why should I give it for free? Because there's a market to it. They will start charging. Can your customers pay that premium for these green fuels? I think all of these things, as a local entrepreneur, you can't ship these things far off. Yeah. So you have to do your own research in these areas and then set up a unit. Setting up of a unit now is very commoditized in terms of you can buy off-the-shelf machinery and set up these factories. Starting from, as I told you, very simple of maybe 25 lakhs to going up to a few crores, depending upon your scale to it. This is just the pellets and the briquettes setup.
Got it. But there is a big opportunity if someone wants to go after this alternative fuel.
Yes. So as in India, we, as I told you, about 500 million tons of agriculture waste is generated every year across India.
Wow.
And if somebody wants to see, we've done assessment for big cement manufacturing units in MP. They say that, okay, they don't know how much biomass is available across their region if they're planning to shift to coal. They use more than 1,000 tons a day of coal. They say, how do we get to know? That's where we launched this platform, cropburning.in. We say that, okay, we will give you a consulting, and tell them that, okay, across your 50-kilometer region, how much biomass is available, how much is also getting burned. That's a direct correlation of if it is getting burned, farmers are not finding any use to it. If it is getting burned, then if you start paying farmers, they will happily give you that biomass instead of burning it. I think that's a very simplest form of consulting assignment, which I told you is a great opportunity to do.
Got it. And, the same idea of economic opportunity.
It's tremendous.
What you are doing at home with 10,000 plants, I'm guessing there is actually a huge opportunity for anyone to start growing their food and make money out of it.
You see, firstly, when you grow your own food, you cut out buying food, right? You don't have to go to a shop and buy things. And you know what you're eating is in front of you. Secondly, now here...
No, but the benefit to your health is the most important because it's organic and healthy for you.
That is first. So first is the economic. You don't buy food, you grow it. It's good for health. Secondly, you sell the excess produce. Now here, we are selling vegetables worth about 20,000 rupees a month.
Wow.
So we have our customers.
So we have a group of customers and every week then whatever their orders are based on whatever is seasonally available. And of course, lettuce is available the whole year round, which has a demand in the city because people want healthy salads and fresh salads. And then the other vegetables, like we've had broccoli, we've got tomatoes now all the year round. We now will have the summer vegetables, the beans, the bindi, the tori.
And then we started microgreens. So these are all fresh. So every Sunday morning at 7 o'clock, we pluck the vegetables. We get on.
No, Peter, they're plucked much earlier because they're up at crack of dawn. That you don't know.
Okay, they're up. These guys who work for us, they get up early in the morning. They pluck the vegetables. 9 o'clock, we have a taxi, which is dedicated, one to Delhi and one to Gurgaon. So the packs are made departing to all the customers.
And this is every Sunday?
Every Sunday, and they're home delivered. So they can pay cash or they can pay online. So my idea is to take up this income from 20,000 rupees a month to 1 lakh a month by next year. So sitting in my home.
And then there's enough surplus food that you're growing here because you have 10,000.
Yeah, because now, see, we are organizing it depending on the market. Because the biggest problem is finding a market. Getting customers who are willing to buy it. And I can't understand. People will spend 1,000 rupees on a pizza or a lunch outside. They won't And we have priced our vegetables at market price, not organic.
Not at a premium organic.
No,
even though they are organic.
Yeah, market price.
But you sell them at market price.
Let them.
But to create awareness that you should, prioritize on eating food that is organic, that is healthy, that's good for you. I don't understand this logic. I mean, in places like Bangalore and Mumbai, people are aware. In Delhi, it's still a constant struggle. You're willing to pay 500 rupees for a pizza, but you're not willing to pay 500 rupees for a bag of healthy vegetables. This logic is beyond my understanding.
The next future is vertical farms, and there are companies setting it up. Because look at the amount of water we're using, the resources we're using. Now, what does the farm use? Chemicals, fertilizers, carbon, fertilizers from oil. They're all urea and all are produced petroleum products. You're using fertilizer, you're using other things. So look at the cost. For us, the cost is nothing. It's only the capital cost.
And you don't incur any monthly cost for continuing.
No,
Yeah, the vegetable seeds, we use cocoa peat. So there is some.
But I'm guessing it's a fraction of what it
It's a
was.
fraction. Because it's a one-time investment, like say, we get vermicompost. So that goes there. I don't need to buy it.
I'll give you an example. We went to Bhowali, which is up in the foothills. That is it's the large tomato growing belt. And I walked along and I asked the farmer that, ye tomato aap laga rahe ho. He says, tomato is the most expensive crop to grow because they start using pesticides from the moment they put it in the soil. At every stage, they're using systemic pesticides. So that lovely red tomato that you buy, it's full of every conceivable chemical, even to the point, he says, to give it that bright red color, we use again a chemical so as to get the right color. Now, I'm giving you saw the tomatoes on the rooftop, juicy tomatoes ripened on the plant. What could be better than that? And people who taste these tomatoes, it's like a burst of flavor in your mouth. So you have to appreciate that you want to eat food without all these chemicals which are causing the diseases that people get today. Now, that's the kind of awareness that needs to be created, that, look, you have to respect your body and put food into it that's good for you and which will keep you healthy and energized. Instead of going to the hospital and paying those medical bills, why not pay a little extra for the food that you buy? Invest in your health. Invest in eating quality food. And most important, processed food. I'm sorry, that's my biggest bugbear, because you add all those chemicals that you buy in the processed food. We eat no processed food. Everything in our home is created from scratch. And we are energized, we are healthy, and we are happy.
Yeah, and work. You see, you're working with plants. I'm 78. I can sit down on my feet and work. And I've set this all up. I do it myself. It keeps your brain active, your mind active, and it gives you income. Sitting at home. See, today they say work from home. I said, this is the best way to work from home.
I think this is a great example of working from home, growing and eating healthy.
Absolutely.
And making money out of all of this that you...
And the joy of growing your food, plucking it and eating it.
So in this whole thing, right, there are, like, I see the convergence from two very different angles, right? Sukmit coming in at a larger scale of trying to solve the industrial sort of requirements, and here we're kind of starting it at a micro home level, and I think both are sort of needed to converge for society to kind of see that transformation happen.
Of course, in fact, I've been telling people, I said, let us set up community greenhouses. Say you have a slum, take an area, set up a community greenhouse with aquaponics. It's a one-time capital cost, and it'll give food for all those people.
See, the one thing I wanted to kind of talk about is, Sukmit, especially like when you started this whole thing about, trying to address the problem of all this agri-waste, converting it to energy and all of that, was quite early in the whole scheme of things. So specifically, how have you seen the attitude and the support of various institutions, funders, investors, and even government bodies? Like, how have you found that evolve?
I think when I started, it was too early in terms of knowing about biofuels and all. So it was because my partner was from Europe. There the market was still mature and there were technologies which were mature. When we started in India, it was too early. Companies were not talking about carbon neutrality. At that point of time, they used to say that if there's a cheaper fuel compared to coal, then we will use it. So that was a concept from a buyer perspective, right? So when you're starting a business, the most important thing is where do you sell it, right? So that was a challenge at that point of time.
How long ago was that?
So this was about 2017, 18. That was, nobody knew about at that point of time. No company had set their targets of, being neutral or phasing out fossil. I think there were broad discussions, but as such, like now there are hardcore targets, right? So they can't skip those things. But at that point of time, it was not so strictly followed. So that was from an industry point of view. Government also, as a nation, we didn't have targets at that point of time. It was that Kyoto Protocol, and at a whole world level, there were talks about reducing carbon emissions, and that point of time, I think there were issues around rising temperatures, right? So I guess we still fully don't understand what impact it can have. So there are now prediction models which can predict that at some point of time, if we are going at that scale, the Earth will not be sustainable, right? So that's why so much pressure has come now in terms of yearly targets, nation level targets, government targets, state government targets, and then coming down to industry level targets. And so those are the targets which are there right now. But talking about stakeholder support, I think government has evolved a lot. It's good for entrepreneurs, like myself, that there has been policy changes now that it's mandated to use clean energy. Right? So there's no skipping to it. Like just to give you an example, there was thermal power plants. Government also was learning. They said that, okay, let's start with 10% blending or 5% blending. But at that point of time, we didn't have enough resources, enough bio-waste available, agriculture waste available, being consolidated also. And nobody was processing in large scales, which can replace so much coal. Government said, okay, that's fine. It's been a couple of years, those policy changes are happening. And now it's up to, government says that, okay, start with 2% blending, which also is a huge amount. And then go up to 5% in next 2 years, and then 10% in next 5 years.
So when you say this percent blending, it's basically reducing coal by say 2% and introducing
so just give
the cleaner fuel.
Yeah. So if a smaller plant uses not a thermal power plant, but a decent size, just a factory, can consume up to 1,000 tons of coal every day. Right? So when we are talking about 2-3%, it is 20-30 tons. Going up to targets are up to 20% for companies, or replacing completely, doing away with coal. From a farm perspective, just to give you more numbers, one farm produces about 2 to 3 tons of agriculture waste in one cropping cycle. Right? So a medium level company can consume, or just to give you an example of bio-CNG, a CNG which produces 10 tons of gas can take 100 tons of agriculture waste every day. So I'm talking about 100 tons. It is about 50 acres of agriculture waste can be consumed every day by a bio-CNG plant, which produces 10 tons of CNG equivalent. So which can which can replace your LNG. And even, talking about policy level, I think the CNG sector is the most evolved, I would say, in terms of the replacement of fossil. So thermal power plants is one sector, but especially Government of India, what it has done is, this bio-CNG, bio-CBG sector, this compressed biogas sector, has so much policy support that government is giving you 15 years of buyback option of this CNG. That whatever a plant produces, there's a contract which you can do with Indian Oil or BPCL, likes of these. For next 15 years, they are agreeing to buy in a legal contract of your output every year for next 15 years. I think from a government perspective, these are excellent initiatives which entrepreneurs can avail, and there's a visibility now. What happens is now, because there's a visibility of offtake, rest of the things are falling, ecosystem is falling in place. the biggest thing is that you need finance for it. So if you have contract of offtake for 15 years, so then you can go to a bank and get a loan out of that. And I was reading some reports about financing. Now, approximately 70% of your VC funds or your bigger PE funds are talking about climate. Right? I guess today's day, I think it's best to get into this space because there's so much ecosystem support. At that point of time, no VC would touch it, no any other PE fund would touch it. But now there are funds being floated just on climate, that we are doing only climate, we are doing only clean energy. Right? So that amount of ecosystem, and there are companies like big petroleum companies, they have now funds to allocate it to decarbonize.
Okay.
What is happening is likes of Deutsche Bank or big Citibank, those who fund or lend money to these organizations, they say that, okay, what is your decarbonization plan? So it is starting from board level, coming down to you see the impact at a farm level. And so that's the chain which you can see.
So there is more money now coming in.
More money which
this sector
so
as
they
well.
have to invest in clean energy, right? So
Right.
there are board members asking these questions to CEOs that what is a decarbonization plan to these energy companies. And so those who are into petroleum, they are being asked questions from their board members that what is the decarbonization plan?
Right. Got it. And coming to Peter, and how does the general public react to what you are building both here in Delhi and in Goa? You have this amazing oasis, 10,000 plants. The water is clean, recycled. What has been the reaction? Do you see?
Well, we had a tremendous reaction in Goa because a lot of people contacted us. We do online courses. So we have 2 weeks online courses.
No, let me clarify. The reaction in Goa was during COVID, the positive reaction, because people were confined to their homes during COVID. So there was an interest in doing something like what we were doing. After that, let me be perfectly honest. For the average person, growing your own food sounds wonderful, but frankly, they'd rather buy something that's available instead of making the effort. That's the honest response. But what is hitting people today is you're dying of pollution. You're dying of the effects of pollution. Your children, you can't breathe. They all have asthma. They have heart trouble. That is what is making a difference. That's what people are realizing. But this is something that we haven't actually really started promoting and talking about yet. But this we've sort of started realizing that what we made, we thought was a greenhouse around. But this is actually the major benefit of it. This is what needs to be promoted.
You only have to go and buy it from those companies and they'll be making the money. So unless we realize what is happening around us.
No, as you know, in Punjab, because the seeds are treated, so when they're scattered on the fields, the birds eat them and they die. So you're destroying the birds, the insects, all those,
So what do they say? What agriculture, you look at package practices, treat the seed with pesticide, sow it. Then this is the system of sprays. Whether you have a disease or not, spray. Preventive, right? So at least 5 or 6 sprays.
And they're all systemic.
And
so
they
go into the plant, into the fruit, into soil, of course, but into the...
So what we are eating is poison. And we are not realizing that. So more and more people have to realize to grow their own food. And this is showing how it can be done. In your home, in a basement, in a little model, grow your food.
I think talking about more, on these topics only about pesticides and insecticides, you talking about a positive example. Now, world over, there are carbon markets, right? So carbon market is, if I'm capturing carbon from the environment and putting it into the soil, this is, I'm being a carbon negative thing. Now talking about, I've seen farmers who are shifting to a product called biochar. Biochar.
Okay.
What you do, you collect your agriculture waste, you again, burn it and without oxygen, put it in a dump or something and let it burn. So it'll become like a coal and it's called black gold type of thing. And it becomes like a soil conditioner. It has amazing properties. it can so it becomes like a drip irrigation system. You put it in the field, it absorbs water, retains it, and then slowly gives water out. It has nutritional properties for the plants because that's why it's called soil conditioner. And that is standalone farmer can do this. But connecting it to a global level, today the highest price of a carbon credit comes from biochar project. And so it is not of coal replacement or not of any type of fuel replacement. But if you're producing biochar and putting it back into your field, your one carbon credit can go up to $250, one credit. And
Wow.
so it is only an opportunity, for a farmer to consolidate, let's suppose thousands of acres. It can be viable even in few hundreds of acres, but consolidate that, start producing biochar and put it as a carbon project. And so
That could actually be a farmer collective.
yeah, farmer collectives
Which could
can
come
do that.
together and kind of do this, right?
And there are registries today. So we've last couple of years, we've started getting so many inquiries on biochar that, why don't you produce biochar? Because it's a very similar process to producing fuel. And when we saw that, okay, why so much queries? And then we realized that, okay, there is certain spike in the carbon projects and carbon value coming out of biochar. I think this is one case study which we found out, and there are companies now trying to explore that, again, entrepreneurship activities. Another example, I'm just talking about, more positive side of stories. One example is last year we got a call from Himachal. One local educated person, a young fellow, he says that there is a problem of pine needles getting burned in forest and causing huge fires. And it's a problem for administration to tackle that. He says that what about, if I collect these, make it into bale form, like tie it out and, in 4 feet by 4 feet square rectangular bales, and can I send it to you for processing into fuel? I said, yeah, we would like to try it out. And he collected it and we processed that into fuel. Amazingly, that has surpassed any kind of fuel heating value which we'd done before till last year. It surpasses all kind of fuel calorific values. So just to give you an example, there are so many opportunities, and he was also amazed that, okay, this can be processed into fuel. And for government it's a headache, to what do they do if they collect it, where do they sell it, or there's expense to that. But if it becomes a clean fuel, everybody involved, starting from collection, combining that into bales, transportation, everybody starts earning out of that, and you're using a waste to that. Yeah.
Stop the forest fires. But to go back to what you said about biochar, to put it, from my understanding, to put it very simply, biochar is actually a very basic, simple form of actually coal. Because where coal takes centuries
Yep.
to form, this is making a simple form of coal, actually, if my understanding, in a very short period.
Correct. Technical term is called torrefaction. But what you're doing is you are just putting that in a process, and you can do so. So we have a torrefaction unit. It can produce 500 kgs in an hour, right? So of biochar. So that's you just mimic. It's called biomimicry. You are just mimicking what nature has done over millions of years. You just have to learn those things. Right? Similar thing, another example I'll give you is about bamboo. Right? So there are bamboo forests now. As per the new laws, you can give that rights to a forest in a controlled way to a community. So they can actually start harvest forest in a very controlled way to sustain those communities. So bamboo again grows so fast, it becomes a nuisance in terms of So government what has done, it has changed from a tree to a grass now. So you can harvest that, and again from a fuel perspective, it has excellent properties. Right? So it has so there are so many ways you can use bamboo, but fuel is again one of them. And char made of bamboo again has a very high value. Right? So all these are very localized examples. So we in fact yesterday got few consignments of this bamboo cuttings. Can that replace coal in a boiler? And when we are testing it, again the properties are so amazing. And we have these bamboo forests, I think, spread across all India in different pockets. And southern, northeast, all these are, and even in Punjab, we have this Kandi region where there are so many bamboo forests. So all of this are natural resources we just have to see, how nature has dealt with so many problems and just do a mimicry of that.
In fact, initially when I was learning aquaponics, I read a book on aquaponics. So he starts with this. He says aquaponics mimics nature. So he says nature, what is there? In the mountains there are lakes. And in the lakes there are fish and other animals. The water from the lakes flows into streams. And from the streams, more and various insects and animals grow into streams. Then it comes to the plains in a river. And the nutrient from all this goes onto the sides, like the Gangetic plain, and crops grow. And this water goes into the sea. Then he says there are clouds and it rains. This is what aquaponics does. The clouds are the pump. The pump is taking the water, it's throwing it back into the fish tank. The rest is all gravity. There's only one pump. This whole system here runs on only one pump of about 500 watts. That's it.
And all the water is circulated.
Yeah, only one pump.
In fact, somebody came, he was a mathematician. He looked at the system. He says, wow, this is like Venice, where it's a whole system of canals, but you don't see the canals because they're underwater canals. They're underground canals. All of this is water flowing, but underground. So there's no evaporation loss. It's giving the nutrients to the plants, and it's all flowing and going back. So
see, we are mimicking nature by producing a food how nature produced it. Yes.
Lawn, which you sit there and weed. What's the point? A lawn is obsolete. It's a throwback to, I think, just some feudalistic system where you think that, you must be very rich to can afford a lawn. But why not make use of that soil, that land, and do something productive with it? Grow your food.
And see, the important thing is in the city, what is there? There's wastewater. We recycle our wastewater.
Everything, including sewage.
Yeah, we have a sewage, we have a septic tank. From the septic tank, the water goes into a tank at the back of the house, which has a filtration system in it.
Not the solid waste, the liquid.
The liquid waste. The solid waste comes out another way, and under this veranda outside. So what we did is that we made the septic tank. Normally what they do is the excess, the water from the tank goes down, but then it's polluting groundwater. So this friend of mine who's an architect, he said, make a horizontal pit. So from the septic tank, we have these clay pipes, with all around this under the veranda, they're set out, and they've got holes in them. All the malba from the house we were making the house was thrown underneath. The pipes were put on top. They were again filled with, brick bats and malba. On top of that, put soil. Now that water gets absorbed there, and on top there are fruit trees which take that water. So that is the water from the WCs. The bathing and other water goes to the back.
Bathing in the kitchen water.
At the back again there's a filtration system. So the water filtered out, and at the end there's a pump that pumps it up to the rooftop and for a bit.
All our rooftop vegetables are fed with our kitchen and bath.
So grey water recycling, rainwater harvesting. We harvest our rainwater. It fills a 10,000 liter tank here, which we're using for aquaponics. Excess goes to recharge groundwater. With the result, our groundwater levels have come up. Our tube well water, which was at 220 feet and had stopped, has now come up by 40 feet. Our tube well is running. Oh.
And this can be replicated easily with, if I'm a school or
anywhere,
hospital.
Yes, of course. That's what we tell in hospitals, that you got so much area around, you got rooftops. Set up greenhouses, grow your food, and give your patients organic food.
What is the future for careers and education today? Because what were standard professions are already no longer existing, and especially in the future is so uncertain. What is the future? STEM education. So aquaponics teaches STEM education practically, and these are the professions of the future.
You saw that in New York?
Yes. So there is an NGO called the New York Sunworks. They have aquaponic and hydroponic systems on school rooftops. So I went to one, I visited them, and they had projects for children. So the children are growing their own food and learning the basics of physics, botany, chemistry, with what they are doing. And I think instead of just teaching by rote, which is only there to pass an exam, children learn practically the basics of physics and chemistry and botany and biology. That is what is necessary. And these are also the professions of the future.
See, the beneficial bacteria. So bacteria, a student who's doing that kind of science can examine the bacteria, see what it is, what's a benefit, what are harmful bacteria, what are beneficial bacteria, how do they grow, how do you get rid of bacteria that harms you. Similarly, chemistry, see, water is ammonia, test for ammonia, and then it's converted by oxygen to nitrates and nitrites. It's a chemical process. Learn that process and see it happening. You see, physics, there are siphons, there are filters, and then dynamics, water going round and round, concentric, all these are there in aquaponics.
Right. And, just coming to Sukmit, because you've spoken about this whole industry and stuff, a large chunk of us are like middle-aged working professionals working in our companies. And yes, we see the change happening. We're seeing heat waves happen every year. It's becoming hotter and hotter and stuff. And I have a job, I have a family to tend to. How should I even view this? Like, what is there something I can do? Is there something that I need to act on? What could I do?
I think it's a great question, first of all, because most of the people, let's suppose people who are living in Delhi, it's very hard to go out. Not everybody has luxury in terms of going to hills or Goa every year. And if specifically a nuclear family where husband and wife both are working, what do? You can't have certain jobs in other cities or smaller towns or near beaches. So that's out of the question. So what do you do with that? Right? So if we see, as a country, we are very fortunate again to have a model for CSR, right? So which is corporate social responsibility. Typically, our majority of the funds, I think it's more than, I may not have the exact numbers, but it's more than 4,000 or 5,000 crores, which goes just from corporate side of it, and then these Maharatnas and all, which have much bigger funds which need to be utilized. We're just talking about, let's suppose, a company like KPMG or Deloitte or these kind of consulting or tech companies. Everybody has huge CSR budgets. And if you're working in any of these, our typical spends have been either on health or in education, which government has also been investing on heavily. I think it's a good time now to start asking questions to your employers what we are doing for climate change. Right? So are we working, not investing, I'm not talking about investing, which is a different direction, but as a CSR funds, we have so many crores of funds every year, which needs to be utilized. Are we doing anything for climate action? Most of the corporates, they give opportunities to employees to work on different projects. Right? So are there projects being floated around climate change, reduction of air pollution? Let's suppose project on automating everything, what they have, or let's suppose marketplace for biofuels which we have created, something similar to at a very region specific. Can we do something around those things? And there's a huge support system currently. We've been fortunate about getting support from likes of Google, Nvidia, KPMG, that they want to now start working on these climate things. I think one broad level is you can do in your office, ask questions about that. More importantly, also teach sustainability to your next generation. Right? So I think that also is very, very critical. How do you don't see waste as a waste, but see waste as an opportunity? Right? So it should not be that waste is thrown always, but waste can become an income source, consulting source. I think those are the things you can do at a family level. Talk about why it's getting more heated, why it needs to have sustainable. Do you have your sustainable education in school? Right? So when you ask more questions, you will start seeing more solutions also coming up. Also, I think one of the major things missing in India, though we have worked a lot at a government level, but questions in manifesto about climate change. So we see questions about jobs, about income generation, but nowhere I've seen now targets of, in particular states that we will reduce so much carbon. There are things which have an impact, like, we will do farmers' income generation. but can we tie that up to use of agriculture waste or biofuels, and then give a, good to have
A new source of
a new source of income, and good to have a political party which says that I'll make my state carbon neutral. I think, and if you teach your children, at least they will vote, or at least you will vote, on those parameters. I think as a responsible citizen, there are groups. We did a very interesting webinar with UNDP, United Nations Development Program, and one of the participants was from Warrior Moms. What they do is, based in Delhi only, they had their local chapter. What they do is, ask questions to governments that what are you doing for climate, air pollution reduction? Please tell us. And there are people who actually go out to these government offices and say that, okay, give us answers of that. And these are all citizens-led groups. I think we need to be more aware of people are doing that in distributed way. But I think first thing is aware, gather data around that, and then ask questions, whether to your companies, to your government, to your local councillors. I think that you should become a responsible citizen around climate change.
Right. Yeah, in this insight, when I was researching all this in Japan, in one of the cities, there's a whole multi-story building. This company, they grow all their food inside. They got rice, so they've got open areas where people sit. So they made troughs like that, and they're growing rice. Tomatoes are hanging from the along the aisles of the building. All along the building, they're growing food. They have a cafe there, and they are growing fish also. There's the cafe there that serves food from there.
I think
the entire building. So when you're sitting in an office,
Right.
you got a whole building,
Yep.
converted into a food factory.
Yeah.
so. There was a experiment done in Delhi. I'm sure you might have heard about that. They installed artificial lungs in different parts of cities. Idea was to see, what happens to that. So it was just sucking air, and within how many days it becomes, completely black. I think examples like this, where you can be part of that and just, spread more awareness. And there are studies which say that now, even in your growing baby in the stomach, you can find, carbon particles. So if you, hear the stats, it is actually very horrifying. But you can always be part of, the solution around that. And there's money to be made, as we are from business schools, and anything you do, it has to be sustainable. How do you make, when we started working, how do you make the full chain sustainable? Starting from farmers to transporters, to consolidators, and then to industry. Everybody asks about, money. When you go to industry, we give a fuel. They say, is it cheaper to coal? We say that, okay, even if it's not cheaper to coal, but in your annual report, you said that you are going to be carbon neutral.
Right.
Ask those questions, that, why you're still on fossil. I think these are more awareness-led things which you can do as a citizen.
No, and climate change also is messing up, like it's raining. Now in our case, whether it hails or rains or it's hot or cold makes no difference to us. It hailed a few days ago. If it hails here, it makes no difference to us. If outside it becomes hot, it becomes cold, or it's raining or storming, nothing. So you create a system which is irrespective of the weather and irrespective of the climate. And it can be done everywhere. Every home can do it. Every flat can do it. And if we can start doing that, we are straight away moving to sustainability.
And we're creating our own solutions.
And we are creating our solutions, and we are occupying ourselves with positive, vibes.
And we are protecting our health, which is the most important thing. Don't look to outside solutions. Don't expect the government to do it for you. Do it yourself.
Yeah, that's what, when people tell me, many times people say, have you talked? I said, I don't want to talk to government. I said, I can talk to you. The idea is I'm showing you what is done. I'm telling you how to do it. Attend one of our online courses. We have 2 weeks online courses on Zoom and on Signal. 40 minutes every evening, 7 to 7:40. So Monday to Friday, week 1, I cover aquaponics. So every day we cover one aspect of aquaponics. And then whatever those days, video classes, we put it on Signal. And we put videos about it, diagrams about it, notes about it. So people get 24 hours to digest. Next day is the next subject. And then on the weekend, then they can think about what we tell people is, tell us where you live. Do you have a balcony, a rooftop, a garden? And think what you can do with this, what you've learned. Second week, she covers.
Firstly about composting, and because that's a base. So once you compost, then what you can grow, how you can grow, seeds, because I'm very, very passionate that we should use desi seeds and not GMO seeds. I'm always sourcing good quality seeds. What nutrition to give, what natural forms of nutrition, pest control naturally. And then once the course finishes, then we put everyone on a group. So there's always a discussion that you see, because growing is seasonal. It's like when we move from here to Goa, what I can grow here, I can't grow in Goa. The seasons are different. So what crops to grow where, when to grow, timing. We are happy to, it becomes a discussion on the group. We're happy to share.
On the project group, everyone done a course is there. So we have people, in fact, during the lockdown, we have someone from Dubai, someone from London, someone from New Zealand, they did the courses. And Bangalore. So then they interact. So what I tell them is, don't message me directly, message on the group. Give a picture of video what you are doing. Let us share. So, someone told me, why to patent it? I said, I'm not patenting anything, right? I want to share my knowledge. What am I going to do with patenting?
That's amazing. And so anyone who wants to kind of learn this can join the courses that you run.
We'll provide. Also now showing how to live in a sustainable home. So it's not just growing your own food, but also how to live in clean air. And that should be our greatest concern, to look after our health.
Our charges for the entire course is 10,000. And we say that let the whole family join, and they join it for free. So if you have parents, children, you all do the course. And after the course, during the project, on the project phase, there is no fees. We are sharing whatever we are doing. See, the idea is not to make it so expensive people can't afford it. Not to make it cheap so that people think,
not valued.
If you give it free, no one does anything. So you learn.
And we are also saying, we're showing by example. We can do it, so can you.
And then after the course, they can do a site visit to here or to Goa. They can see it actually happening. They can discuss.
And then it makes sense, because otherwise it doesn't, It's just a theory of it. So until you see, but you can only understand it better once you've done the course, because then it makes sense and then you can work out how to implement it.
And it has lifelong benefits.
Absolutely.
Food, which is a lot cleaner. No, on that note, we are the better Indians. We have a very high sense of optimism. We want to see, and we believe we will see, an India which has clean air. The statistic today that 90% of the most polluted cities in the world are in India is terrible, but it's incredible to see the kind of innovations and the initiatives that are happening both at a right at a micro level from a household all the way to at a macro level. What Sukmit is trying to do is where I'm kind of very, very optimistic that we'll solve this. But so on that, Sukmit, I'd love to get from you, what do you think are the key actions that need to kind of take effect in order to realize our dream of having clean air across the country?
I think target level, we have done very good. Our government has done very good job, I would say, to set the targets for clean air. So there's a clean air action group. There is the renewable energy department who has set the targets. I think overall, I see amazing work being done at a policy level. I would love to see that now being implemented at a very forceful level, coming down to state governments, to political parties, to citizen awareness. I think these are the chain of events which need to happen to become, to have a clean air. And I think if we, as an Indian society historically, right, so we have been very, very sustainable. As a child, we have been, the first religious, part we learn is about, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and it ends with Pavan Guru, which is your air is your Guru, Pani Pita, your father is your water, and earth, Pavan Guru, Pani Pita, and Mata Tarat, your earth is your mother. And the whole world basically, plays within day and night with all of these. And, talking about sustainability, 300, 500 years ago, that our religious texts have mentioned that you can't destroy these things, So, we have been very sustainable in our olden days. and talking about sustainable seeds, sustainable ways of living. We just need to now shift to those kind of living at a nation level. But what I'm also putting in a lot of focus is that doing that you can have your careers around that. You can earn a lot of money around that. It's good to have money. You could to have good sources of income. So there's great opportunity now to actually focus on these things, make Earth more sustainable, and have a good living around that. I think that's the key message I would
Great. And what about you? What do you think are the key action points that need to take effect for us to see every household being sustainable?
See, for me, I'll say the thing you can.
Sure, yes.
So for me, it is grow your food, create your environment, go solar, generate your electricity, generate your water. There's atmospheric water generation, the new technology coming up. So sitting in your place, get your water, get your food, get your electricity, get your power. Control your environment. You are contributing. If everyone does that, the earth will come greener like that.
Well, for me, I would say the most important thing is to respect nature. And that is actually what COVID did teach us, though most people have forgotten about it because they want to go back to their way of life. But if you respect nature and live a simpler life, I think instead of this wasteful, over-materialistic life, and not ape the West, take the good things from the West, not the processed food and, this ultra-materialistic way of living. You don't have to have every day, a new set of clothes. But there are simpler ways to live. So I think that is what we must go back to.
That's something my grandmother, she was a part of their family. She used to have 3 sets of clothes. One she wore today, one was for tomorrow. The third was to go out, and she said, if I die, put this on. She washed her own clothes. And I used to keep telling her, she said, Punjabi haath pair chalan de. Then what's the problem? And when she passed away, there was nothing in her cupboard. There were just these 3 sets of clothes. There was a gutka, there was a this, and that's it.
To go to the Okinawa is one of the places in the world which is in Japan, which is the longest lived citizens. It's the blue zone, and their philosophy is ikigai. So now they are 100-year-old people. They all work on a little plot of land, and they're farming. At 100 years, they're growing their own vegetables. They all get together. They cook their own food, and they it's community living. I think that's what we must go towards, is community living, which we had in the villages. We don't, in the city, nobody knows who's living next door, and you don't care. So that I think we must connect with each other much more and share.
No, incredible. I mean, a whole bunch of things that we kind of touched upon here. Grow your own food, community living, question your representatives, start talking about climate change, start talking about addressing these issues. And if you've been watching this till the end, please share this video with your friends, your children, your colleagues, because a lot of these solutions are needed. One is, of course, to create awareness so that everyone becomes cognizant of the solutions that are there. And second is, a lot of us can start adopting, and as we also discussed here, that you can actually have your own farm in your house and start eating healthy and start living a more sustainable life. So on that note, thank you really for joining us, for sharing these insights, and more importantly, thank you for what you do. It's just incredible.